Welcome back to the World Championship Series. We are live in Toronto, Canada, and we are here to find out which players will play in the quarterfinals for Championship Sunday tomorrow. Joining me on the desk this time, we have Kevin van der Kooi, also known as Rotterdam. Good to have you over here, my friend. Hope you've been having fun casting over on the Red Bull.
No, it has been fun. I mean, like I said, the Void is so different than Heart of the Swarm, but you can already sort of see which direction the game is heading towards to. And it's been fun. Me and Nate having a blast, you know, just kind of teasing each other about each other's races and speculating about what would happen if Nate and me play Archon mode. Like, well, obviously we would blame each other because we're both really whiny. But it's been good.
Good, and I hope you're going to have just as much fun up here with me and, of course, in Control, who's joined us for the last couple of games. It's time to move in to Group B. We finished with Group A, and if you didn't know, Bunny did escape from that group.
I know, Sean, I know.
Okay, good. He good.
He knew. I was very loud in the audience out there.
Oh, you were watching in the audience?
Yeah, of course.
Did you enjoy the experience of being in the Canadian audience, Roddy?
No place like Canada.
I love questions like that, though. He's like, you know, to be honest.
Actually, you guys are really underwhelming. No, you're the best. And it's only going to get better, Sean, for the rest of the weekend.
Did you enjoy yourself? No. Well, okay, moving on.
Do not like that audience, actually.
Let's take a look at the bracket for Group B. As the games were played yesterday, you might not be up to date on where we are, but Holt, as expected, as he came into this group with the 3 European players, dominated, advanced in first place, and moved swiftly forward to the quarterfinals. And now it's a tale of which European player joins him. We have 2 French players, and France has been doing excellently over the last couple of months and has really brought out some of the best talent in the European scene. And also, we have the Dutch player who is on the cusp of becoming one of the best players in Europe. It's Harstem, who is going to be playing in our first match against FireCake here. Initial thoughts on the group and how it's played out here. Roddy, we'll start with you.
This is like, Pold winning the group is not surprising, and yet in a way it was still a little surprising because his round of 32 performance was a little underwhelming, but we even said yesterday it doesn't mean anything with Pold. Yep, you know he's just going to tone it up, step it up a notch again. He's going to really step on the gas pedal, and that's what he did. You know, Harstem gave it all, just wasn't good enough. Would have probably been good enough against most Terrans, not against Pold. And Marine Lord, Fire Lord, I guess it's a 50-50 matchup, so in a way maybe it wasn't too surprising, but it is really impressive to see Paul just do what we all expect him to do, but he just keeps on doing it, and that deserves an applause on its own. 3
entertaining players now fighting for a chance to join Paul. One player that we haven't seen on the mainstream yet is FireCake, so let's hear him from him.
In the round of 32, I played against Massav and Yaguz. I think I played good games against Massa and a bit bad against Yaguz, but I still managed to win in a close fight and finish first on my group. I'm very happy to go in Toronto with other French players, and I think I will show to everybody that I'm still the #1 in French, but we will all do a good result, I think. I am really looking forward to play in front of Canadian people because they are like French people, they are crazy, and I'm pretty sure they will yell my name on the crowd, so it will be great. My goal for this season is to reach top 4. I might have a decent group and I can do well in the final bracket.
Congratulations to FireCake, first place finisher of Group G this evening.
First place finisher in the round of 32 indeed, and he's been playing and performing very well within the WCS over the last couple of months. And when you look at FireCake here, he hasn't got the best reputation in the pro community outside of that, but at the end of the day, reputation isn't everything. He is skilled, he is very good at playing StarCraft. And Roddy, a lot of people, especially with changes that have come into StarCraft II recently, the Swarmos was one of the biggest changes to the game as of recent times. When this change came in, everybody said FireCake is done. That was his unit, that was his core strategy. When that is gone, so is he. He is still here, and he's in another top 16.
No, I really like that you bring it up, because that is just the case. You know, people were saying like FireCake is just an abusive Zerg. He's only relying on Swarm modes. As soon as they change that, you know, we're going to see that he's just a patch Zerg. But it turned out it's wrong. He's doing better than he's ever done before, and people wonder like, well, why is it then? I guess even if you learn only how to play a certain style, you start becoming so good at it that even when you take away that unit, his mechanics, his fundamentals were still there. If you compare his creep spread to most other Zergs out there, I know it's like an old story to compliment a good Zerg about his creep spread, but he's very good at it. Even when the Terran is actively trying to deny it, like his mechanics are very solid all around. Whenever you see a 20-25 minute game, if you give him freedom, he will capitalize on that freedom. And I must say, you know, I was a little bit on that train as well. I kind of thought that he was only a Swarm mode player, but he proved me wrong, and he's showing that he's very well all around.
FireCake, being an all-round player, is also one of 3 French players to make it to the top 16. And for a very long time here in Control, we haven't really had a country that stood out above the rest in the European scene. And today, in 2015, it is France. 3 players in the top 16, more so than any other country. Holland's coming in second place.
We're coming though.
Can't forget, when Roddy gets back on the... when Roddy qualifies for WCS, when he's not up here on the desk, they're going to have 3 out of 3. But right now, it is France. Lilbo, Marine Lord, and of course, FireCake. Fighting between each other, the French scene is fantastic as well, and it really is bringing out some of the best talent in the European scene.
Well, absolutely, and they're kind of chasing after the legend that is Stefano. I know that's kind of a strange comparison to make, but they are all Frenchmen, and he was inarguably, for a long period of time there, the absolute best foreigner, and he would topple a lot of the best Koreans too to win the biggest tournament. So they have something to look up to, and they know it is possible. I think that's a really cool example of, they're like, you know, we played with him in the same scene, and yeah, he beat all of us, but there was a time where he didn't necessarily. He comes from Warcraft 3, which Rotterdam knows very well. And right now, they're the strongest scene. They're talking amongst themselves. Something that Pig talked a lot about too, which I really like. There's this misconception that because StarCraft is a 1v1 game, everyone's by themselves. Not really. It's actually like chunks of communities, either by nationality or just play groups. So it's really cool to see a country come together like that.
And we're very close here to potentially having 2 French players in the round of 8. This has never happened before. This is a very big moment for France. They have 2 French players playing in this group, Marine Lord and FireCake. You've got Harstem, the kind of guy in the middle between them. Lilbo's already dominated
Which is a French flag inverted, by the way.
It's basically might as well be French.
The Dutch are basically the French.
No, I would like to say the other way around.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's time to introduce the 2 players to the stage.
Gentlemen from the desk, we've been waiting so long, you've kept us waiting for this match here in Group B. First up, as we've been discussing, it's the renegade of StarCraft II right now, flying high but riding solo, hailing from France and representing Punchline ESC, it will be FireCake. His opponent, he's been vying for this breakthrough moment for so long. Can he make it happen, and will he make this match count? Let's find out. Representing Invasion Esport, it is Harstem. The crowd can't wait any longer, so players, please shake each other's hands, enter your booths, and get ready for your match to see who moves on to the final match of Group B.
Once again, thank you very much, Chobra. I am very happy to have you here doing an excellent job on the hosting side of things. Harstem. Let's talk about Harstem here, boys, because we've talked a little bit about FireCake. Harstem came into this group, and he had the biggest challenge that you could really ask for when coming into the round of 16. You're paired up in the first match of the round of 16, the very first game you play coming to Canada. You go up against the Season 1 champion. He attempted it, Pult deflected anything that Harstem gave, and he got shut down. He did get shut down, but now it's in a bit of a more comfortable area again where he's able to shine, as he has done in the past, to get to the positions he's in. He's in a group with two other players that he knows very well, and he knows how to beat Roddy.
Yeah, they are beatable opponents, and I think we should just forget about that match against Polt. Obviously, he went in with good intentions, with dreams of defeating the reigning champion, but didn't work out. Doesn't matter. From this point on, Harstem, you just got to do what you've been doing for the last 6 to 9 months, and that is beating other top Europeans. He has defeated Firelord before. He has defeated Marine Lord before. FireCake, excuse me. Well, Firelord sounds pretty cool as well.
Firelord is a way better name.
Yeah. No, he has defeated them both before as well, and he knows himself that this is a moment. You know, he's capable of beating those guys as he's done it before, and just like the French are looking for their next Stefano, you know, everybody in Holland would like to be the next Grubby. Grubby has had a magnificent run once in WCS. He made it to the semi-finals, and Harstem, you know, he was probably watching already back then. He was even playing actively already back then. He would like to be the next Grubby, and you know.
And while we're on Harstem, there's a very, not quite the same size and same scale, but there is also a very tight-knit, passionate scene in the Netherlands as well, Roddy.
No, and we've got great players, man. We've got events popping up left and right. The DSCL is doing some great work, and we've got a very strong Terran in U-Thermal, so we're basically very well represented. We got Harstem for Protoss, Red for Zerg, we got Yona, strong Zerg as well, so we are really coming up as well for such a small nation. It's definitely something to be proud of, but this is Harstem's moment. He's been the one that's been knocking on the door for the longest. Of course, Red was shining like a bright star in 2011, 2012, but the last 2 years, why is that funny, Sean?
Because I love how you throw song lyrics into this so easily.
Well, what do you say? I'm a fan of Paris Hilton.
But it's true. Harstem has been knocking on this door for a very, very long time, but he hasn't entered yet. FireCake, in a very similar way to a lot of the players that we have in the scene in this tournament, are so close to actually opening that door and breaking through to where Bunny is, to where Snoot is. FireCake is another one of those players here, Jeff, as he isn't on top of the scene, but he has the potential to be that guy. If he beats Harstem here, he beats Marine Lord, he goes to the top 8. That is a great story for him.
Absolutely, and you know we've talked about kind of the French background, but really making it to the round of 8, that's the kind of performance that people do actually talk about in the next WCS season. And the next year, they're like, you know, he was a round of 8 WCS season finalist. Like, that's actually an incredible record. So that aside, I'm also excited too because as an expert in bad manner Zergs, you need to win to maintain that notoriety and to be really good. Winning's not necessarily everything. He's got it though, and he's going to want to win here because we didn't get to see his performance. This is his first time on main stage. Yep. He's got to do it here.
Cactus Valley is going to be our first map, as we saw the map videos on screen real quick. Cactus Valley is an interesting map. A lot of Zergs like to veto it, and if you guys wonder why, it's a map that's large but has a ridiculous amount of choke points. And if there's one similarity between Harstem and the Frenchies, is that he got his PvZ inspiration of the other French Protosses. Petit Drogo and Lilbal, known for the Sentry Blinkstalker. Harstem is a mirror image of that style. He does nothing else, so it's a really cool idea as well because he knows how to do this style. On the other hand, FireCake plays against those guys all the time, so he probably has an answer to it. So how is this going to unfold? I actually have no idea, because obviously Harstem knows as well that he knows so much about that style.
So what is the biggest point, for either one of you can answer this, what is the biggest point we must be looking out for here? Is it the aggressive pushes coming out from Harstem? Is it the creep spread, for example? What is the most important part of this matchup on this map?
I think in short, it's third bases, to be honest with you. Like, is Harstem going to go for 2-base hardcore aggression, or is he going to get that third base and then secure it? Zerg meta right now is all about either all-out cracking that third base or allowing them that third base, but then the tech that comes from that third base getting countered hard. So how are they going to play it?
What do you think, Roddy?
Yeah, it's a map with a lot of choke points, but there is need one moment where Zerg can possibly get a great engagement is when Protoss is trying to establish that third base. There's often a wide open area right next to it. That might be the moment for Roaches and Hydras to really just, you know, bust it through and just break down that Protoss wall. Because once Harstem stabilizes on 3 bases, you know, Red said this very well, you're going to have those little hallucinated phoenixes above every single move you do for the rest of the game. And it's not fun playing Zerg if Protoss knows every single thing you're going to do. So I think we're going to look forward to one big fight around that third base, like Jeff said, either right before it's up or right after it's up, and that's where FireCake has truly make the difference.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. It's time for a battle between flags that should be upside down and flipped around. It's time for France versus Holland in FireCake versus Harstem.
Thank you very much, Sean and Jeff and Roddy. Are you guys very well educated on Protoss versus Zerg? But Huck, we have a pretty interesting matchup ahead. You know, there's 3 non-Korean players left in this group, 2 being French. Harstem's the odd man out.
Yeah, but I think he has a really good shot at making it out. I mean, his PvZ has been really stellar. We saw that in Burbank ourselves, and he just seems so on point and confident. He plays a very safe, conservative style, but he does it so well, and FireCake knows what's coming. Can he stop the train that is Harstem?
It's time to find out, ladies and gentlemen. We are loaded into the first map of our lower bracket match for Group B. In the bottom right position, the blue Zerg, the French player from Punchline, he's FireCake.
And in the top left, the Dutchman, the guy that is playing for Invasion Esports, we do have the Protoss player, Harstem. Do you think Harstem smells fear? Feels fear?
I don't think Harstem's the kind of guy that goes into a match like this with anything other than brazen confidence. That series, I think Roddy made a really good point against Polt. You go up against the champion, and anybody in this tournament that defeats the champion from Season 1 is going to be, lauded for that upset, taking down the guy that's looking to go for that repeat. You can't be disappointed when you come into this as, someone that shouldn't, in the first place, be expected to make it that far, but also defeating a guy like that.
Yeah, and he didn't actually seem nervous at all. He seemed to have a committed plan. He knew what he was going to do. He executed it. Of course, he did lose to Polt 0-2, but it didn't seem to really bother him too much.
Yeah, and FireCake is the kind of guy that kind of really doesn't seem to mind too much what other people say about him. He kind of just does his own thing. A lot of the discussions you've heard from players, he doesn't practice a lot with too many other players. But already on this map, I think we've seen something a little bit unusual out of the Zerg player. Do you have any experience with? Basically, he's kind of taken his bases in a weird order.
Yeah, so what will end up happening, hopefully for FireCake, is that he wants the probe to come, see the natural timing, and then expect something different. He wants the probe to come in, see that hatchery, know the timing, because Harstem is a very experienced player. He does look at those timings. He does know what HP that hatchery should have, where the creep should be when the probe arrives to know what opening he has. So he sees the hatchery at the natural, goes into the main base. That's what FireCake's hoping for, and hopefully he will kill the probe before it sees that third hatchery. But at this point, we don't know if that's really going to play out.
So he's just trying to give a little bit of misdirection to Harstem.
A little trickery always helps out, because Cactus Valley is a big map, and as soon as Zerg does take the field with Zerglings, generally speaking, they can't deny a lot of scouting. Harstem is a player that is a great scouting player. He always has those Phoenix patrolling the map. But until he can get those Phoenixes out, he will be playing a little blind as soon as this probe is taken off the map and there is no threat.
And Harstem does now come in with that probe. Like you said, if this was a fast hatchery, which we know it is, it would have already been done if he had placed it in his natural. So the probe goes into the main base to check and just see a little bit more. Of course, he didn't immediately go to FireCake's base, so he's not 100% sure. And we can see, a little bit of the fan voting, a little bit more on the side of Harstem so far.
Yeah, I would definitely say Harstem's a more fan favorite than FireCake, but FireCake having a monkey on his back. He has something to prove. He wants to show that, he's someone to contend with, and he's not going anywhere. He is the best French player. He is the next Stefano, and he will not be deterred no matter what anybody else says.
Yeah, when you really compare the way that both of these players look at this group, FireCake must already even be thinking about that potential rematch against Marine Lord after that very close series that they'd already played in this group. He's already thinking about making his way past and getting into that top 8. Whereas, you look at a player like Harstem, after that match versus Polt, he still has to show up and show that he's got what it takes to contend with these top non-Korean players.
Yeah, he's always been the gatekeeper when it comes to, being a top threatening foreigner. But he hasn't shown the results. Every time he goes up against a Korean, it's just, he gets destroyed, to be honest. He doesn't show any of that super solid play he does against foreigners. He wants to prove himself, and he will get that opportunity if he can make it out of this group. But that's the big question. Which foreigner will make it out? Because all three are very, very, very close in skill.
Yeah, the comparison that they brought up with the styles, Harstem really taking after a lot of the French Protoss players. How well do you think that lends into FireCake's hands? If he's done any studying on Harstem, then surely he'd be aware that he plays a style much like his French compatriots.
Kind of can play into Harstem's favor, though. We did see him play super safe, super macro heavy, getting that third base very quickly in every single PvZ that he played in the round of 32. This time, he's opening up a little bit more aggressive. He's throwing down this pylon. FireCake does see it. He's not deterred. And to be honest, it seems like the timing's a little bit off for Harstem. He's going to, of course, warp in. He's in no threat. And now what Harstem's basically saying is, hey, I'm here. You need to make units, all right? You cannot keep pumping drones. You cannot pull ahead economy-wise right now. I want you to commit to this defense. And back home, he's going to continuously try to pull ahead in workers. The question is, can FireCake read through this? Will he make the appropriate amount of units compared to workers?
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to bring up, you know, especially if this is a sort of style that FireCake has experience against. You know, for Harstem to make this happen, he can't just go with the same standard, right? You want to really set yourself apart, because it comes down to a lot of how he's been trying to play in this tournament, really trying to set himself apart from the other non-Korean players and try to make into his own. But going for this aggressive push, really showing, okay, I don't want to let you get super comfortable because I know you're familiar with this style. Has he set himself up to be in a place where he can comfortably move into the mid game and keep focusing on really just, you know, creating a gap between these two guys?
I feel like Harstem didn't do as much damage as he had hoped for, but at the same time, forcing FireCake to make this many units already is a small win. The question is, will he take any amount of damage from this? No, he will not. But he does have to warp in a lot of sentries just to defend this, to make sure that he is being safe.
And we already start to see the first little bit of extra scouting, the hallucinated Phoenix. Harstem, being a confident player in this matchup, I'd have to imagine, thinks to himself that he just needs to be aware of what's going on, and then he has the skill. He knows that even without those results, he has the ability to make use of just the most basic tools to win, as long as he doesn't get caught off guard by anything. So is there anything that he spotted here that could really, you know, throw a wrench into his plans?
In general, if he's really paying attention, he could see that there are a good amount of larvae coming out. He didn't quite see the amount of roaches that were coming out, which is a big deal because
there's 2 roach horns too.
Yes. So if he realizes that in this moment, he will know that burrowed roaches are most likely coming. It could be seen as a mistake, or he could just overlook it. At these high pressure situations, sometimes as a player, you're just looking for units. You don't really pay attention as much as you should be. He's going to double check, and hopefully he realizes he does see all the roaches moving across the map, so he should start figuring out. And as soon as he does, he throws down that Robo Bay. FireCake is definitely going to open this game being aggressive. He's getting the tech so that those roaches can burrow, they can, you know, tunnel their way into his opponent's base, and hopefully be able to get into the mineral line and do, you know, a good amount of economical damage to Harstem's probe line.
Yeah, and FireCake, despite knowing that Harstem has taken these precautions to scout him and thoroughly look at, you know, basically a situation where he's just trying to outplay him by being informed of what's going on. He's going to push him with this attack anyway. FireCake, once again, he's just making a move that shows his confidence that he really feels he can make this work.
Oh, there's a cannon, though, and there's a lot of vision here. He's going to try to pick off a good amount of sentries, but to be honest, he's losing a good amount of his roaches.
I mean, most of the gas-heavy sentries, though, you make a really good point, getting picked off. Harstem had this setup on the way, but just being outside, wasn't 100% sure where it was going to come from without that observer, and now being pushed all the way back. FireCake taking a massive supply lead as he dives into Harstem's third base.
Yeah, and he's going to have a hard time holding in here. There's just so many roaches. He doesn't have that +2. He doesn't have that blink. He doesn't have immortals. All of a sudden, FireCake showing a lot of confidence, just moving in there, knowing that his whole army was right underneath him, and those sharks just burrowed in. And they're doing a good amount of damage here.
You know, it really, in the play, you can see he's not really been showing, you know, any regard for what his opponent could have been up to. He just picked a build, he picked a strategy, and he's showing that confidence that he has of already thinking about, you know, proving himself in this group to be the best French player, let alone non-Korean.
Yeah, when I look at this game as a professional player, I see that FireCake prepared, and he's doing the damage. He picked a great build, he picked a great map to do it on, and all of a sudden, he's going to be going up 1-0 here, most likely, if he can continue to ramp up this aggression and constantly do damage. He's pulling Harstem apart. He just doesn't have the army to defend.
And FireCake will take game number 1 in this lower match for Group B here at the World Championship Series Season 2 Finals in Toronto. Nice start for FireCake. He being that kind of guy, we talked about it, the analysts talked about it before, you know, he's the guy that's, as Chobers so eloquently put it, riding solo. And in this tournament, you're only going to get so much backup from all the other non-Korean players that are also, you know, trying to make their stake as not only the best player in you know, outside of Korea, but being the player that can contend with the Koreans themselves. And from that first game, really just showed pure confidence, wasn't phased by Harstem's forward pylon when he tried to bring that aggression, and as we can see right here, just took absolute advantage of Harstem playing a very standard style that didn't give him any advantages against this.
Yeah, the confidence that he portrayed in this one movement alone. You see his whole army's in position. There's vision. Your roaches are starting to get attacked. He still commits to it. That means he studied Harstem a lot. He knew exactly the timing. He knew exactly what Harstem would have, and he practiced these games with somebody or on the ladder. And he knew, all right, even though he has a lot of units there, I can break that army. And he just committed. Because the way burrowed roaches work, once you're in, once you're deep, once you're attacking, you're committing a good amount of your army there. You can't really retreat quickly enough with those force fields coming into play. But FireCake showing that he came very prepared for this group, very prepared for Harstem.
Yeah, and I have to ask, you know, when you look at the way that FireCake prepared his strategy, right, that very heavy burrowed roach aggression, picking a style that he couldn't be force fielded away. We're moving to Iron Fortress. Is this something that he could bust out similarly again, or do you feel that the strategy was more based around that French PvZ style that Harstem's been, you know, known for adopting?
So far, I would say that FireCake has tailored builds, as in, for each map, he has a game plan, what he wants to do. Even the hatchery going off in that weird position, it just seems like he knows exactly what he wants to do from point A to point B to point C to the end of the game. And if he can continue to do that, it's going to be up to Harstem to kind of change what he's doing, because Harstem is known as a PvZ player that does the same thing every game. He showed a little bit more aggression, it didn't pay off, and then he just went back to his bread and butter. Trying to get that blink, trying to get that +2, and trying to get a good amount of sentries and constantly scouting. He saw what was coming. He had great scouting. He couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point to illustrate. Harstem, you know, playing to his strengths of playing that standard build that he does time and time again, playing with all the information in front of him. You know, you see 2 roach horns, you know that the upgrade for the roaches to move with burrow is really the only reason why you would get it. FireCake is not the kind of player that we look at and says, we'll accidentally build another tech building like that. You know, there's always an ulterior motive for him to get that, and it's in this case the upgrade. Is that something he has to look out for again? Do you feel that he needs to make big changes to defend, you know, slightly unorthodox plays like that?
I feel like he needs to either commit to his normal macro style and not take any risks at all and just say, I'm the better player, I will beat this guy, heads up or not. He can know that I'm doing it, doesn't matter. Or he needs to take a bigger risk. Doing that small, semi-aggressive pylon sentries, losing a few units, isn't really worth it for him. He needs to stick to his guns.
Well, perhaps we'll have to see Harstem decide to take that role as the player with the overwhelming confidence, as we have a very nice position here, loading into game number 2 for our blue Zerg player, spawning in the northwest position of Iron Fortress. Up 1-0, he's FireCake.
And in the bottom right, down 0-1, trying to climb his way back into this group, we have Invasion Sports, Harstem.
Now you've seen a lot of Harstem's games. You've had opportunities to play with him, to play against him, to watch his games, and to study his replays, everything that he's done over the course of this year, where a lot of people have said his results have improved. He's become more consistent. Does Harstem, in the back, you know, when you watch his play, do you see the confidence that he really feels he can win against FireCake, or does that towering, just that unshaken, you know, boldness that FireCake picks in his strategies, is it too much for him to overcome?
It's hard to say from that last game. This game, with the openings, if we see Harstem just go for his normal builds, I think that he feels very confident in a normal game he will beat FireCake. But at the same time, he needs to mix it up at some point. As this tournament goes on, he's going to continuously play better and better players. You can't keep doing the same thing every matchup and every set. You need to mix it up, especially as the opponents get tougher. In Burbank, against IA, okay, maybe. But against FireCake, who's a top player, a top Frenchman, which is arguably the top country outside of Korea, you need to bring something more.
Yeah, I think it's been very interesting, you know, just off the way that you said FireCake tailored his build, especially knowing and studying Harstem, knowing that he plays that style that the French Protosses play. And, you know, one of the coolest things, of course, you mentioned that France being quite big in StarCraft outside of Korea, is that they have a lot of these tournaments where the French players will get together and they'll play against each other all the time, whether or not they're practicing. So he does have practice against those styles. And you know, as a community, I feel like this is the kind of thing that gives players like FireCake the opportunity to become good enough to make these deep runs.
Yes, for sure. I mean, as we spoke about before, he's not a player that has a lot of friendly faces. He doesn't probably have a lot of practice partners, but he's such an intelligent player. He plays a lot of ladder, but he can pick up on these things. He can practice these builds. He doesn't need that committed partner to run over the same build over and over again. He just understands the game on another level. And that's the same thing that happened for Stefano. Stefano was another one of those players. He didn't scout that much. He didn't, have special mechanics. He wasn't a great micro player, but he understood the game and he knew what he had to do. He picked the correct builds, he executed, and he won game after game. And I'm seeing a lot of those same characteristics in FireCake.
It's going to be very, very interesting to see how he changes things up moving into this game. It's a pretty quick Zergling speed. During the last game we saw, he didn't even have his Roach Warren prepared for when Harstem had that forward pylon outside of his base. Harstem took a falsely aggressive stance. He didn't have a big force of gateways behind it. What is FireCake saying by opening up with this Zergling speed on this map? Does he just feel so confident that he's telling himself, I can kill you quickly?
This is for sure a map that is very, very weak to Zergling speeds, especially because Harstem walls at his ramp instead of at his natural. These rocks on this ramp can be broken down. And at the same time, if they are broken down, you can put a pylon behind them as a secondary wall. But until that happens, it's a very vulnerable point. Even if you do have that SimCity setup, even if you have a gateway wall where that pylon is, you want to choke these Zerglings into one single line. So it's one Zergling versus one Zealot. But if FireCake can delay that, if he can get into this base, he can do a lot of damage.
And we can see, very confidently with this aggressive play, having that map 1 victory. Zerglings are just streaming across the map. His Zergling speed upgrade is about to complete, and now Harstem will get his first inkling of what's coming as the Zealot is out of position. He's going to run up straight to that ramp, burning out that force field, but he can catch the Zealot out on its own. There's no Mothership Core, no Photon Overcharge is possible. Harstem's going to have to evacuate his natural expansion.
Yeah, and he's in a lot of trouble here. He's got to calm down. He's got to relax. If he tries to defend this natural, he's going to lose every single probe. He cannot risk it, but at the same time, if he loses his Nexus, he's going to be very far behind as well. He's got to pull off some very good micro.
He gets around the entire army, all the probes and the sentries caught on the ramp. Harstem showing a little bit of frustration here as all the Zerglings pour into his base. FireCake sweeps 2-0 over the Dutchman and will have his revenge match against Marine Lord.
The silent killer here, Harstem kicking himself right now. He's so frustrated. FireCake just very calm, very stellar play all around from him. He picked the correct builds for the right maps, and I have to feel for Harstem here. He's trying to make a name for himself. It's just not going to come this tournament.
And that's got to be a good feeling. He will, as we said, get that revenge against, or at least the possibility to get that revenge against his French teammate. But let's hear words from the man himself, FireCake with Chobra.
Yes, indeed. FireCake here right after his 2-0 win. A pretty quick match, actually, especially in that second map, as we just saw. But moving on to the final match of the group. I mean, how do you feel just that now that you know, okay, now I got another chance going back into the quarterfinals?
I don't really know. I try to do my best at every match. Yeah, I hope I will reach the quarterfinal.
All right, so coming in, I mean, we hear a lot that you work kind of just on your own, that you're that solo agent coming in. You like to do your own thing. Do you feel really just good about that benefits you a lot, that you can just focus on your own game, just do your own analysis?
Yes, of course. I mean, StarCraft is a game of strategy, so that's why I play this game, is to make my own strategy. And yes, that's the part of the game that I love, and I will continue to make my own strategy.
All right, sounds good. Having his own little flair, of course, going in. Now in the decider match, you do have to play with someone you're probably very familiar with, Marine Lord, your fellow countrymen. Does that ever affect you guys when you have to play each other, or are you like, well, you're in the way, I need to get to that trophy?
I don't really know. Maybe for him it's important when he plays against me, but I don't really care about who I play. I will do my best to win Marine Lord this time and move to the quarterfinal.
All right, ruthless FireCake right here going for that quarterfinal. We'll find out shortly in that quarterfinal match.
Once again, thank you, Choba. Congratulations to FireCake. Not through yet, but one step closer, and he lands himself currently in the exact same position he was in Season 1. One game away from qualifying to the top 8. Unfortunately, last season, he was in this position against Polt. It's a little bit easier this time. It is Marine Lord. But before we talk about FireCake, before we talk about FireCake, Harstem devastated. And there's support there for Harstem out in the crowd. A nasty loss. It's a really stinging loss, that, Roddy.
It's a type of loss that if this happens online 2 ladder games in a row, it doesn't really bother you too much. You're like, you know, I'm running bad. It's not really going my way. But on a tournament like this, he's been looking forward to this for many weeks, been really practicing, working towards this weekend, and he wanted to shine. He wanted to do what Lilbao did, you know, just crush his group, and he knew it was going to be harder for him. His group was more difficult, but Harstem is capable of making it out of this group. Both games, you know, games number 1, if the Mothership Core is a little bit further southwards, then maybe he sees those roaches burrow a little bit quicker. Would still be difficult. It's just smart. You know, it comes back to what we started about in the start of the series, or what we were talking about. FireCake plays against these types of playstyles all the time, you know, against the other fellow French Protosses. So his approach to the series was very smart. And for Harstem, like, I think his PvZ is good, but maybe against FireCake he should have tried to switch it up. But yeah, it's a very, very unfortunate series for him.
I mean, he goes back down to the bottom of the barrel and he has to climb up again and again. And this is something which in Harstem's career he's been doing for years now. And at this very moment, it's a tough beat there to be able to think that, all right, back down again, got to rebuild myself back up to the round of 16. How does someone really come back from that type of loss? We saw how much it meant to him when he lost there, Jeff.
You know, one of the cool things about Harstem is that he has kind of an unrelenting positivity. Like, he'll take this loss, and you can see the emotion on him, which I think is, in a sad way, very cool. I think it's cool that he cares that much. And it's going to hurt for a while, but he's going to go home and he's going to get back to practice. He's a hard worker. Everyone knows that about him. Okay. And he's going to come back and he's going to say the same thing. Polt? Oh, easy peasy. I got it 2-0. And he should think that way, because round of 16 in and of itself is an accomplishment, but Harstem is such a good competitor that to him, this is a failure. This is a defeat. So the hope is still there. The optimism is still there. And I just hope he continues to put in the work, because he will get there eventually.
All right, let's switch our focus to the winner of that now. FireCake, we're guaranteed 2 French players in the top 8 for the first time in WCS history. Major moment now for France. By the way, look at these flags.
He appears twice.
So FireCake will go up against Marine Lord. I'm very excited for this one. This is a budding rivalry that everybody knows about now. Marine Lord, in his interview that we played earlier on yesterday when he was introduced to stage, he said he does not like FireCake. He does not like him. He wants to beat him, and he did yesterday. The revenge match is there for FireCake to get that revenge on him, but this is a fantastic match to decide which play goes through.
Countrymen, rivals, basically anyone in FireCake is a rival. But they had an hour-long match on the other stage, which, you know, there was a time where it was kind of like, oh no, not another hour-long match, but we're past that. So it's kind of cool to have the long game possibility, and I like that this is a rematch. That's what I like about this format a lot. The only reason FireCake is fighting for his life is because Marine Lord sent him down there just yesterday. So it's a nice, cool little, hey, I'm back, and I'm feeling good about it. So I'm really excited for this match.
Kev, what are you, I mean, Marine Lord has called FireCake out time after time after time. FireCake's like, you know what, maybe this means a lot to him to beat me, like whatever, I don't care. And we saw it in the interview there. He's like, you know what, it's just another player, I'm going to the round of 8. What are you?
I just can't imagine that. Like, I really can't imagine it. When you play against someone from the same country that's even calling you out as well, and even when you travel together, you know, it's not like they sit next to each other in the airplane and they discuss strategies. Like, apparently they didn't really speak a whole lot on a 12-hour journey to Toronto.
Imagine how, you know, Blizzard and ESL buy the tickets. All right, these 2 French players, they can travel together, we'll sit them together.
We'll room them together, it'll be great.
And then FireCake Marine Lord pressing the button on the airplane. Excuse me, air hostess, can I move seats?
No, like, you laugh about it, but like, I can't imagine it doesn't mean anything to FireCake. Even though he won't be that vocal about it over here on stage, he wants to win this, you know, at any cost. Of course, he always wants to move to the quarterfinals. That part is true. But doing it against Marine Lord, someone who's called you out multiple times, you're going to try extra hard.
I'm looking forward to this match, and it is going to be coming up right after the break. The 2 French players go head-to-head, and they don't really like each other, but one of them must win. One of them will be eliminated. We'll be right back.